Thank you very much and welcome very much to the GOSH BRC showcase. We're going to have just a few housekeeping messages from me before I hand over to Matt Shaw to formally open. So, a few basic things. The fire exits in this room are to the left if you're down here or back up the way you came in. The Slido code for those of you online is on the agenda slide here, so you should be able to see that online. For anyone who wants to ask questions over Slido, please type them in and I will be taking them in the room and asking the speakers. Please can I ask you to make sure your phones are turned on to silent. For anybody online who wants to activate subtitles, they are enabled, but you need to activate from your own home Zoom account to see the subtitles. Just a note to say the event will be recorded. You've all been asked as you came in if you're happy to have photos taken. If you're not, someone will have given you a sticker, so we're aware of who doesn't want to be photographed. The nearest toilets for anybody there are some outside and just over the bridge on the Winter Gardens, and there are also some on the ground floor where tea and coffee will be served. If you have any other accessibility requirements that we haven't managed to address, please come and talk to either myself or one of the team wearing stickers with our name badges on, and we'll do the best we can to help you. Please look after your personal belongings. People tend to leave them lying around here, but we can't be responsible for anything left in this room. And just a quick message to the chairs. Please make sure speakers, all of you will get given a microphone. If you can, please put this microphone near chest level and clip it onto you. We've been told it's the best to be picked up for the online. So it gives me great pleasure now to ask Matt to come. Thank you very much.
Good morning everybody. So first of all, you'll be pleased to know the roof's not going to fall in. So UCL and maintenance have just said that, so well done for those avoiding that area as well, so that's really good. So for those at home, there was a bit of a leak in here, so that's at least we can carry on with it. So, so first of all, it's the first time we've met since 2019. This will be my 5th year as Chief Exec of the hospital in December, and I can't believe there's only we've done one of these before. It's the first time we've actually all come together as a group, so it's really fantastic that we're managing to do that in a kind of a post-COVID era, if we want to describe it as that. And the more I've gone through my career at GOSH, the more I've realised that, in fact, research, if you talk to Sim, my Director of Comms, she'd say research is the USP of the hospital. I slightly widen it to that. I say the patient populations and the groups of children we have come here are unique, and we are so lucky that we can have those children come here. But I would also say research is also the USP of the hospital as well. It's done amazing things. And when you look at stories such as the base editing story that we had, that reached over 75 countries, millions of hits, and then Elon Musk is tweeting about it. Whether you think that's a good or bad thing, I'll leave it to you. But it truly has worldwide reach. And these are for a particular group of children, which actually, it needs people like us. It needs hospitals like GOSH to really, really advocate for them. 25% of the UK population are below the age of 18. 11% of all health episodes within the NHS are children. So if you look at all of the attendances in the NHS, around 11% are children. How much research money is put into children? 5%. Okay? So if you work it out per population, they're getting 20% of what they should get compared to the population size which children are. If you look at it in terms of health episodes in terms of the UK, they're getting less than half what they should. So we provide what advocacy is one of the core roles that we must provide for children, because they do not get their fair share in multiple different areas, whether it's research, whether it's drug discovery, you can name more and more and more, but that's part of our role. And the more successful we are as a team, the more successful we'll be at advocating for research to go into children's research, which ultimately we all want. So thank you to all of the BRC team and all of you who've actually managed to get us to a point where we've renewed yet again. So 2007 was the first BRC application. I'm sure that was probably a 2-pager on the back of an envelope, and now we're kind of hundreds and thousands of pages of all of the work which many of you have done, and to be renewed again. And that's absolutely amazing. And that's because we do have this unique role of being the only real children's focused paediatric BRC in the country. It's not a surprise, therefore, that actually we have more power than we think we have. 3 visits from a Secretary of State in the last 18 months. The UK Rare Disease Strategy launched from ZCR, literally 50 metres across the road. The whole of the Commons Select Committee came to tour GOSH and see what we're up to, linked to the Children's Cancer Centre, but also to research, genomics, data, many of the things which you do. We have more power than we think we have, and we can advocate really, really well for children. This is really a unique collaboration between ICH with the BRC in the middle of the hospital and in the university itself. It does act as the bridge, and it works really, really well. Our local relations with ICH, I think, are brilliant. And I think that will take us from strength to strength as we progress over this next 5-year term. So today, the purpose of this is to really bring together all of our community of researchers, funders, collaborators, and also external stakeholders to hear about some of the really exciting things and some great talks which you're going to hear this afternoon. We're also going to hear about the new BRC Junior Faculty Early Career Researcher in Impact Award. That's a handful. I had to read it. A mouthful. I had to read it. Which will be announced at the end of the programme, which is, again, it's not just about the researchers of today, it's about the researchers of tomorrow. And for me as the Chief Executive of the hospital, it's also about the research that we don't do just in the lab or don't just do on the ward, but it's also about the breadth of specialties which we engage with, whether that's around nursing, AHPs, physios, scientists. All of those individuals have lots to add, and we need to do more to even the playing field, if you like, and to make research even more accessible for all those different groups. Okay, so we're going to have a short video, which is going to be from GOSH's Young Persons Advisory Group, and they're going to give us their thoughts on the new BRC term, and then I'll hand over to Thomas. So over to the video.
Hi, I'm Alex Holland, and I've been a member of GOSH YPAG since around February 2020. This was a really great experience for me as I got to see YPAG move online and adapt to the COVID circumstances, which was great to see how researchers were still able to stay in contact with us across the internet and using video media. Since then, I've been able to be in some amazing experiences with GOSH YPAG, both in person and online, including the BRC funding interview and filming for Drive.
Hey, my name's Ivan. I just joined YPAG in October 2021. I'm learning lots about the GOSH BRC and the research being done here, and I'm so happy that the new funding will continue to help researchers with new discoveries to help patients with rare diseases. I'm extremely excited to see what I can work on in the future.
Congratulations, GOSH BRC. I can't wait to hear all the great work you've been doing, and YPAG would love to hear from you.
Congratulations, GOSH BRC, and our YPAG members are waiting to hear from your researchers. We're here to help.
I'll hand over to Thomas Voit, and have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you so much, Matt. So, good afternoon, everybody. I'll try to fix this here. Hope it works. Right. Can you hear me well? Thank you very much for coming, and to those online, thank you very much for attending. We're very happy to have you all here to meet in person again after all the COVID times, and we're very happy to share with you the riches, not in monetary terms, in scientific terms, of the BRC. This meeting is really about the future, so we won't tell you much of what has happened in the previous BRC. We really want to project ourselves into the future. Here we go. So our mission is to transform the health of children, as you've already heard from Matt, and the adults they will become, by combining our cutting-edge research with world-leading clinical trial expertise to accelerate discovery of new treatments for children with rare and complex conditions worldwide. Who are we? The Biomedical Research Center is sitting, by definition, between the university, the Institute of Child Health, and the trust, the GOSH Hospital. We also both are linked and are using the Zayed Center for Rare Disease, where a lot of our research is sitting. And the BRC has 5 themes, and we will introduce you to more detail of these themes in a minute. And a very important central development hub that is reaching across all the themes and is harboring our Career Development Academy, our PPIP activities, our Equality, Diversity and Inclusion, Research Communications and Business Development, and I will also say a word about that. I'm very happy that we have several representatives here today from our partner hospitals in Birmingham, Alderhay, Liverpool and Sheffield. We have, as part of this BRC, created a Pediatric Excellence Initiative with these other trusts and researchers in order to widen the community of researchers that are involved in this translational research, but also in order to make our research more accessible to a wider community of patients. So let's start with the first theme, gene, stem, and cellular therapies. I will not present to you the themes in all their detail, and you will have other talks later. What we've chosen to do is for every theme to just highlight one of the really new things. Now, we have been working in the BRC for years now on developing gene and stem cell therapies, as you know. As these are progressing, we are getting more and more drawn into very sophisticated approaches for these therapies, because it's not always just a simple, you give an infusion into the vein and then everything will be fine. So more recent approaches, and these are really here lined up for neurometabolic disorders, for example, use intraparenchymal delivery for mucopolysaccharidosis type 3A. So there you give an AAV, an adeno-associated virus, direct into the brain parenchyma at different sites. They use intracisterna magna delivery with an AAV9 for GM1 gangliosidosis. For those who are medics here, it's not that easy to target the cisterna magna directly. It's quite a hurdle to overcome. And then we're using combined intracerebroventricular and intravitreal delivery, so into 2 different anatomic sites, ICV and into the eye, for an AAV9 for treating Batten's disease. And Paul Gisson is heavily behind that sort of approach. So why is this important? Well, delivering gene and cell therapies is not only having a drug and giving it to a patient. It requires very, very sophisticated clinical trials. It's very unlikely that that sort of approach will be available in 20, 50 centers in the near future, will be concentrated to a few centers, and we have to upskill ourselves also to deliver that sort of therapy. It's not an easy win. It needs a lot of upskilling also at the level of all our nurses, our project managers, every level, pharmacy, every level. Okay, next theme, genomic medicine. You all know one can do lots of stuff in genomic medicine. Again, I will just give you one example of what's new and on the cooker if you want. Now, many of you will know that our genetics and genomics group, Lynn Chitty and Sergio Castellano, have been promoting, Lynn in the first place, non-invasive prenatal diagnosis for a long time. That you do by getting cell-free DNA, which is recovered from the mother's bloodstream, but it's actually fetal DNA. And from that you can make diagnosis. And that has actually been implemented into the NHS already and is now doing away in many cases, not all cases, with invasive prenatal diagnosis, such as by amniocentesis, for example, which itself carries a miscarriage risk. So it's much easier to draw some blood from the mother. However, There are particular circumstances which are not rare in genetic medicine where this is actually very complicated. So the standard approach that's available is that if you have a mother, if you have a mother who is heterozygous for a condition and a father who is heterozygous for a condition, and then you place multiple SNPs along the respective side, and then you look into a potentially affected proband to see if the proband is homozygous or heterozygous or doesn't carry any of these in a recessive condition. Now, if you draw blood from the mother, you have to actually quantify this, and that's being done by sequential probability ratio tests where all the heterozygous SNPs of the fetal fraction are determined. So it's quite a complicated procedure. Now, this is very complicated if you want to do it for consanguineous families. And so the team have worked out a new method using an analytical approach and the SPRT, so the mathematical method, that uses the shared SNPs and test these, and they did this on 33 control samples in order to validate the methodology, and then tested 8 samples from consanguineous families. Consanguineous is complicated because you may have the same SNPs around your mutation, right? And this has passed the test, and they had 8 samples, and out of these, they could, in 6 out of 8, they could pass the quality control and provide an accurate diagnosis. Now, this obviously needs to be developed further, but it will be done by developing SOPs in the Genomic Lab Hub. Then this will be submitted for accreditation, that's the accreditation body in the UK, with the idea to implement this innovation into the NHS. And that also gives you an example of how we're trying to use constantly new methodology, also to develop new methodology, but then how to make it available to patients and to the NHS. Accelerating novel therapies, our next theme. Accelerating novel therapies has very recently obtained the nod from MRC to create an MRC node funded by 1.5 million around nucleic acid therapies for rare diseases. Now, what they've set up, and Haiyan Zhu and Francesco Montoni are leading on this effort, is a whole pipeline where they will reach out nationally to use RNA therapies for rare disease. They will identify diseases and new genetic targets. So from anywhere in the UK, this group can be contacted and people can ask, we have this and that rare disease. Do you see an opportunity to create an RNA therapy around that? What type of therapy would you suggest? Is this available for or useful for RNA interference, for oligoantisense therapy? There are many ways to do RNA therapy. Of course, not every disease will be eligible. And then in partnership with the Nucleic Acid Therapy Alliance, which is another funded scheme to which they also participate, and with Genomics England, they will start to produce preclinical design, evaluate this, and then try to work it through into the clinical approach, into the clinical translation, and eventually to the patient. So the overall goal is to have a platform for translation into human trials. Yeah, 1.56 figure. The next theme is tissue engineering and regenerative medicine. You will hear more concrete examples later in the talks. This team, led by Jane Souden and Paolo, who are both here, is focusing on the combination of human-derived stem cells, which are then grown not only in culture, but also in 3D complex models, also in combination of different types of stem cells, with the idea to grow new GMP-compliant replacement organs. Okay, it's a bit of futuristic goal, right? To create new organs and then implant them. And they're doing that for esophagus, retina, intestine, thymus, and kidney. And they also develop precision and minimally invasive surgery and novel intraoperative technologies to make this happen, but also to profit other approaches like fetal gene therapy, for example, by advancing pediatric surgery. And they do have quite considerable winners along this path. So they managed to grow human-scale intestinal grafts for patients with short bowel syndrome. So this is one of the indications they will be going after, to have new intestine, neo-created intestine to replace at least part of the lost short bowel. So they're very concrete applications. Another concrete application, recent paper in Cancer Research, is that using molecular imaging, they can make cancer cells light up and in that way guide resection of tumor, for example, in neuroblastoma. The next theme is applied child health informatics, led by Pierre Hardelit and Neil Sabir. This is a broad theme, and I'll come a bit to the breadth of it in the next slide. One very recent, very concrete application shows you that one of the focuses of this theme is to use the wealth of electronic patient record data we have sitting in the trust. And you may know that GOSH has very high IT maturity, was the first trust to get level 7 maturity, and can actually use the electronic patient record data we have quite well. Now, this calls for applications to widen this sort of scope, and this is a national paper where they have used EPR data and machine learning to look into existing patient data and see what happened during COVID with infections and what happened afterwards, because all this data is actually sitting there if you can use it. And what they showed is, what they showed is that, you know, for all the years preceding COVID, you get your spikes in RSV, you get your spikes in influenza, and then the lockdown comes. And of course, this changes everything. And you don't have a spike anymore. And after the lockdown, the infections resume. So that's a practical application of using EPR to see how the epidemiology of respiratory infections is running. The theme also, in a much wider way, uses not only EPR in order to look into epidemiology or also into studying the life course of disease. They have potential to get deeper insights into disease, get earlier go, no-go decisions. For example, if you have a new patient who comes into the hospital and you don't understand the symptomatology, the system allows you to interrogate the hospital's own data of 20 years of patients to see what was happening in patients who came with this symptomatology, what was their diagnosis, how was it found out, what was their treatment, and what happened to them. This is an evidence base which is much larger than what we used to have by just looking into literature. Plus, literature, of course, gave you what was found in other hospital environments. So it doesn't necessarily translate one-to-one into your environment. So that's a completely new base for judgment. And of course, there are many other specific topics. So we can do enhanced matching of patients with therapies and care. We can find out much better what is working well, what is not working well. And again, this has a reach out, and it's also coupled with the NIHR Children and Young People's MedTech Cooperative that is led out of Sheffield. And it's a very strong collaboration between Sheffield and the Child Health Informatics team. I already told you we have our cross-cutting hubs. They are very important for us. And the Career Development Academy, led by Philippa Mills, Sir Terence Stevenson, and Conor McCann, they're all here, is a big project which we are conducting that aims to fund school and undergraduates, postgraduates, PhDs, and then also mentor and finance those who are post-PhD through Catalyst Fellowships, Intermediate Fellowships, which are for the wider healthcare professionals, in order to make them competitive, to reach scientific independence, to obtain fellowships from Wellcome, MRC, NIHR, and so forth, and eventually to take on an academic career. The whole program is financed with more than 3.5 million, and of course attracts other funding, for example, through the CDTI, so the doctoral schools, which are competitive processes also always. So, and through our GOSH charity, we have very strong support for the fellowships, for example. We also stage events like academic training weekends, general mentoring, junior faculty bite-sized seminars. Again, the junior faculty are organizing all of this and particular leadership experiences. All of this in order to create the next generation of translational scientists. At some stage, we older ones will all be gone, and new ones have to carry this. So it's a really important project. Patient and public involvement and engagement. We want to expand and increase our equitable opportunities. We are already not too bad, we think. So you've already heard our YPAC members. We are increasing the membership and the collaborations, of course, also with our partner trusts. We have regular programs such as the Rare Disease Day, International Clinical Trials Day, and so forth. We have very much increased our PPI involvement in lay panels. So when we have calls for new projects, for example, or for PhD stipends, or for Catalyst Fellowships, and all of these panels, we try to involve PPIE representatives at different levels. And we've trialed this in the last year. It's going very well. We are working on bespoke PPIE best practice advice for researchers. You may think this is a small item, but actually it's more and more required for every big grant you're writing. And if you think everybody knows everything, our experience is many know nothing and many know too little. And actually a lot of teaching is required to get your PPIE sections right. And I can tell you that even if your science is very good, if your PPIE is not good, your chances of getting a grant are decreasing rapidly these days. So it's really important. And then we also have put up animations to support public communication, just for example, for genome sequencing, and these are in the public domain. Of course, we want to do better. We want to expand and increase the equitable opportunities. We want everybody to have a voice in what we're doing and increase the opportunities for public members to be involved in the decision-making process. As I said, for our grants, for example, that's actually working very well, but we can always do better. And we want to PPIE not only as a section written in the grants, but we want increased financial support for PPIE because it's an important activity and it also needs money to do it well. Then Equity, Diversity and Inclusion, led by Poonam, who is here also, and is available if you want to talk to her. That's an area where we think we can do better. It's not that we are bad, but a recent survey of all the medical faculties sort of bluntly stated that we are all bad. Our faculty was a little less bad than the other faculties, but if you draw a simple graph and you put at the bottom the increasing salary ranges from, say, grade 5 to grade 10, the number of diversity percentage clearly goes down very linearly to the upper levels. That means there's a lot to do if we want to really implement diversity across all levels. I said we are not that bad. We have an Athena Swan Gold Award at the Institute of Child Health. We have staff networks for gender, race, disability, and sexuality, and they are actively working. But we are at an early phase. We just start to collect new data for our grants, for our fellowships, for everything. How much do we actually achieve in implementing equality, diversity? And this is certainly an area where we can do better. So we are working towards evidence-led change, towards more diverse leadership, towards opportunities for all, and towards absolutely inclusive participation also in trials, also hand in hand with our CRF, because that's another part where inclusion actually doesn't work that well. And if you look at the patients who are participating in trials, the percentages you get for diversity are not exactly the same as in the general population. So there's a lot to do in that domain, and we are very conscious of it. Business development, we're doing well. We can always do better. But we have filed in the past BRC over 30 new patents. Quite a few are partnered with industry now, and we've created 2 new companies, Bloomsbury Genetic Therapies and Axovia Therapeutics. They're both gene therapy companies. They've grown out of all the portfolio of new ideas and new know-how we are generating, and we certainly want to get more and more going this way, although the biotech environment in the UK at the moment is quite difficult. We are helping researchers to protect their discoveries and to develop them this way, and we are really working towards transparent pathways also with the Tech Transfer Office, the TRO, and with UCL Business. We're not doing this alone. And of course, again, if we can with our partners also work more towards this direction, that should be an easy win for the future, actually. Just a last word about our partnership. I'm really, really happy that we got this off the ground. We dedicated 1.5 million of the BRC money to our 3 partner trusts. Having said that, we got further support from the GOSH charity. Very welcome. We are running lots of new projects. Our partners are also very welcome to take part in our open calls, where we have internal calls for new projects. That's also starting to work. I think we can all learn from each other. And it's not only to connect Birmingham with GOSH and Alderhay with GOSH, it's also to connect Birmingham and Alderhay and Sheffield. I hope we also get that part going. It will definitely be a win-win situation, and we are happy that we got it off to a good start. Thank you very much. Happy to take your questions.
So I could start from one question on Slido online. So somebody has asked, how proactive is the BRC in working strategically with patient organisations that are also funders of medical research so that we can align the priorities?
Well, I can only... Too strong a question. I can only speak for the many who are here and who are on a day-to-day basis working with multiple charities. And I can't give you a precise number, but they certainly count close to 100 or more charities we're working with. All of us in specific fields are working with charities and trying to tie them in into our work, but also to go there and educate patients and help them to develop their identities. And I think it's sort of the bread and butter of everyone who's working in rare diseases to be tightly connected with the respective charities. We have also some big programs outside the GOSH charity, which are funded by other charities, like our Arthritis and Rheumatism Center, which we have together with UCLH. So yes, we're doing this. How we bring everything together in a field that is also pretty dispersed and where the weights are not equal. You know, there are very big charities, there are very small charities. Some charities are just for rare diseases where you may have 10 or 20 patients. That's a difficult question. I don't think I have an easy recipe.
If there are no questions in the room, there's a second one on Slido, which is from Jack in Stoke, at Royal Stoke. And he says, have you got any advice for improving PPIE?
Yeah, I think I tried to put it on the slide. Maybe it didn't come quite through. It's a complex process because in our experience, we have to really involve our patients and the public into the individual operative steps of the BRC. That means meetings like the YPAC group are a good example. They're meeting independently regularly, but they're also feeding into our grant selection process. They will happily provide support, like one of the YPAC members came to our BRC interview at NIHR. So they do help us a lot. We try to help them a lot. And one of the improvements, if you want, was that during COVID, we managed to move all of this online, which was a big success because it turned out for some of the YPAC members who have actually disabling conditions, it's much easier to participate online than coming to the meetings physically to GOSH every time. And now many of these meetings are run as hybrid meetings. So who can come, will come, and who will take part via internet will take part via Zoom, and that's perfectly fine. So there are many ways how we can improve this. We're working on it, and all suggestions are welcome. Yeah.
Regarding the patient involvement, sometimes we invite clients that are very basic science and they are difficult to convey to the public. So it's more a suggestion than a question, like to organize even for the area researchers courses on how to invite particularly that part for basic science projects.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion, and I'm sure the the junior faculty will take this into their bite-sized meeting approaches. We regularly have these meetings for transfer of knowledge, if you want, for grant writing. I think the next one is on the 21st or 26th of June. So that's a very good suggestion. We also actually draw help from our lay community, from our parents and carers and from our YPAC people, reading the lay parts of grant applications and correcting them for us. And we are quite frequently surprised that what we think is, basic language is actually jargon, and they don't get it at all. And they help us to write it in more lay-friendly terms. Okay. Thank you very much, and we'll come to another video which will introduce the tissue regeneration theme.